allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to tonight's Planning Board workshop. Please be aware of the fire exits in the event of an emergency. They're to the left of you. Please move in a calm and orderly fashion down the stairs, and please do not use the elevator. The workshop is being recorded by our ICAT department, broadcast on Spectrum Channel 1303. The board will follow the items in the order they appear on the agenda, with copies of the agenda near the door. Please call the first case.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First item on the agenda is a sketch plan conference, case number PB 2023-10-3. Request by Steve Labazetta for sketch plan conference for the proposed construction of 5 multifamily dwelling buildings totaling 10 units with site-related improvements on premises 91 Lakefront in a WD waterfront development district.
Oh, there it is.
Who's ever going to start? Please start.
I'm
Introduce
Steve
yourself.
Labazetta. Thank you very much for taking the time to spend with me. This is Mark Kostic.
Need your addresses too, please.
Steve Labazetta, 96 Reservoir Avenue, Rochester, New York. This is my property that I own, 91 Lakefront. I've owned for quite a number of years, over 30 years now. So,
Mark Kostic, Kostic Engineering, 217 Wake Avenue, Rochester.
Okay.
well, I believe I'm looking at the same thing you're looking at right now, and we have a front elevation and, of course, the site plan that Mark and his firm has put together for us based on a project that we're very excited about and feels very appropriate for the site. We've taken a lot of care to make it feel right for the site, be a nice transitional project between the apartments that are right adjacent next door and the open neighborhood to the east. As you can see, our plan is for an upscale and contemporary feel to each of the units. They all would be identical, but at this point, this is what, after much review, this is what we've settled on as a presentation for you to consider, in that we're quite comfortable with the size and look as it stands. Mark's quite familiar with these types of projects along the water and all, so it has not been casually laid out or, without consideration of all of the things we think at this point are necessary considerations to partake in. And here we are today. I'm grateful for this level of presentation. I think it's very valuable to have, this preliminary chance to hash out our thoughts on what we want to have happen here, and of course the town's outlook on it as well.
I'll just add a couple of things to that. For the benefit of the audience, we're talking about 5 buildings with 2 units each. The buildings we call 2-story. They're really kind of, I guess, 3-story in the fact that the garage is below, and then there's 2 living stories above, and there's a penthouse for the roof and potential for elevators in the future or initially. We do have adequate parking per code and for visitors, we feel. We have a turnaround at the end. We have also shown pedestrian access that was part of the concern during the rezoning, which took place in 2020,
2022, it was granted.
2022, the rezoning from, it was R5 and R1 and was rezoned to waterfront development.
It was C Business in R1.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
Steve has acquired a letter from the New York State DEC, non-jurisdictional letter, basically saying that they, have looked at the proposal and that given, we're pulled away from the shoreline, they don't have jurisdiction. We do believe that portions of the site could be below the floodplain. We intend to meet the state and federal guidelines for development in the floodplain. These would have the lower level on fill that would be compacted, meeting the FEMA requirements, and be 2 foot above the floodplain. And there are, very, very specific guidelines to how to do that, and we intend to comply with that. Ingress and egress is through what was formerly 3rd Street. It's a driveway, provides access to the site currently. Sewer and water are available immediately to the site. And stormwater, we will have to design. Typically, when you're this close to the lake, you don't look at the quality of runoff, but the quantity. The opposite of that. You look at the quality of the runoff, not the quantity. So we'll be, implementing best practices in regards to stormwater to be detailed in the future. So I think with that, we're liking to get input from the board so we can proceed with this.
Anybody got questions? Just go ahead.
I just want to revisit something that we had prior, which is the right-of-way for the trolley. Does that affect this property at all?
Are you referring, I'm sorry, I think you think we're talking about the sidewalk or the promenade that runs east and west in front of the current houses there?
Right.
Well, yes, we have. On the site plan, you'll notice a call-out. It says at the bottom, middle, existing overhead electric to be rerouted underground. That also is in connection with the sidewalk itself. There's a concrete, let me see if it's actually possible to read this. Is it, how do we do?
The existing sidewalk is there.
It is there, and then we will continue it at a diagonal parallel to the buildings to go between the furthest south building and the next building, column 1 and 2, diagonally towards 3rd Street. So, yes, there is
So
consideration.
be running between 2nd and 3rd Street, east to west.
The
is what,
sidewalk runs.
and it would be in between building, the southernmost building and the building next to it?
And then the next one to the north. There's what, it looks like a driveway, but it's a concrete sidewalk that we'll be replacing at that angle to continue on to what was 3rd Street.
And that's part of the public easement that currently exists, right?
Correct.
And how will that continue over to 3rd Street or to the river?
We have
Well-
shown a pedestrian ingress and egress running in the north-south direction along the drive. So that,
Yeah.
No, I understand that, but there's still the issue of the right-of-way that is not under our control.
Yes, that will go.
That's a pre-existing right-of-way.
That'll bisect our lot, and we will build back in. Actually, the sidewalk is actually physically not there any longer. It's only on a portion of the lot as it is today.
Yeah, some of it's a dirt path. I know that
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
But that will be formally put in as part of the development as an actual sidewalk that will bisect the lot and go, completely across it to what was Third Street.
okay. So are you using that then also as a driveway?
No.
How are they accessing the garage then?
Oh, so, the access to the garage is, so what you see is the darkened area on the site plan
Right?
is the combination of driveway and pedestrian, north-south pedestrian access. And the sidewalk that we're speaking of, well, the way we have it right now is that we would reach that asphalt. It would traverse across green space onto the asphalt, and then it would be up to whoever was using it to access Third Street. We
Okay.
could
I'm just
continue-
asking because I've been down this path once before
Yeah,
on this easement issue, and this is an easement that supersedes a lot of the zoning that was up there, and I think that maybe staff can be helpful on this to us to make sure that we're not bisecting this easement.
well, we're not, I could speak a little bit to it from what I
I mean, because you could still own the property with an easement going through it.
Sure. And we recognize that. Physically, right now, were you to take the sidewalk without putting a bend in it as we have, you would end up in a vegetated built-in area that Westage had built as part of their parking lot. So this diagonal sidewalk actually gets you past that out into the open, what was the road. So it actually is an improvement to what's there now.
Yeah, I mean, we've had somebody also do an improvement for us too, and they still haven't moved forward on their property. So, if we could just take a look at it, I don't want to make that the issue of tonight's.
Well, I would only say that we're sympathetic to, I mean, we're not trying to get rid of it. That's not, in fact, we've made sure that it's part of this.
Right.
So, and we're sympathetic to maintaining that
Just-
sidewalk.
And to respond to that a little bit more, our office did prepare a subdivision map. We did a full review of the abstract of title. Waterfront development has lots of easements, and they're not always that clear, but we did a very thorough review of the survey and the easements. So we can share that with your staff and with the town engineer, and I think that, what we're doing, I don't see that we're violating any rigid meets and bounds.
I'm asking for clarification on your behalf, and so we know what's going on.
Right now, what's
also.
there is just a piece of concrete landing in the middle of nothing. And we're going to take and put new pedestrian ingress and egress over real concrete and asphalt that gets people somewhere.
Okay. And so folks are going to come off of Third Street then, off of where this cutout is to drive their car, and you're going to have pedestrians and traffic? And I get it that it's residential, so it's not going to be a big road here, but there's no dedicated sidewalk for pedestrians. You'll just have them walk on the
Well,
driveway?
to be frank about it, I mean, there's even less than that now.
Yeah, no, I mean,
I mean-
right, but now you're putting in cars and you're putting in houses and
We
stuff,
are,
right?
There will be some added traffic, yes. But I think,
We kind of consider it no different than a residential street in the town of Rondequoit.
But there's not going to be any, I'm asking, you're not indicating sidewalks on this drawing?
No.
no, it would just be the asphalt drive that would have, that we recognize people would be able to utilize to go north and south.
Okay, and so the word public access is probably a little generous here? Okay. Your engineer is shaking his head.
Well, I'm saying it's generous because really
It's meant for the residents,
Well,
Right.
it's meant
Yeah.
also, though, the residents, I mean, to get into a little bit of the neighborhood, certain deeded properties in that neighborhood have beach access.
right,
The general public technically does not.
right.
But unless I was to actually stage somebody there to monitor that, which I never have really done, other than no trespass signs, I mean, you know, it's one of those things that we've never really gotten too hung up on.
But you're not intending on inviting the public to walk through it, is my point.
no, well, I was shaking my head for a different reason than I think
Okay.
you're interpreting. The intent is to allow for non-residents to be able to walk through. If you look at all the information of the past, what Steve's referred to is that there are certain neighborhoods that have been granted easement to walk through, but you can't monitor, you know, where someone came from. So it is public access. Now, there's no public vehicle parking. There's no, you know,
We're not
a parking
encouraging
lot.
that.
It's not a public beach, or it's a beach open to the public because all beaches are. But Steve.
I'm asking for the conflict between people and cars. It doesn't sound like that is actually your intent, is to create an invitation there.
No.
Okay,
No.
I'm good. I'm gonna slow down here for a few minutes, Bernie.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting point. I don't really mind that you brought it up because, you know, if we did put a sidewalk in there and said, there it is, go use it, it would be, I think, a whole nother level of use that we don't necessarily want to encourage. But what's there is going to be very safe for anybody to use, should they want to, so,
Yeah, I'm just trying to get an idea of what your definitions are for the language you're using.
okay.
That's all.
And you actually raised a point that I'm concerned with. So to get from point A to point B through your property, there's no, because we had this before when I was on zoning board, et cetera. There's no public access to the waterway because I think in Orion Court, a lot of people felt they had exclusive rights when they actually did not have exclusive rights to the waterways. So I hear two things right now. So is this public access because there's no exclusive right to the waterway, or is it public access because you're being generous?
I can tell you that legally, there is, as I understand it, there isn't really any reason for the property owner, me, to have to grant access to just anybody.
But those easements existed before you owned the property. That's what I'm asking. What's maybe staff can help out with.
Well-
What is the public access to the waterway on this?
We have the easements and the description. It's an agreement basically dated October 29th, 1963. And I can read to you what it says. Spezio agrees to grant the residents of Somerville Tract a permanent easement for ingress and egress to the beachfront. Said easement shall run north-south from the northerly end present to 3rd Street to the water's edge and shall be 5 feet wide, and the easterly boundary coincide with the extended east line of 3rd Street. So it's to a specific neighborhood that there was a negotiation when Spezio developed Westage. There was a negotiation to give Spezio something, he gave things back. So it was to a specific neighborhood, but what I think Steve is saying is that he can't control it, and I encouraged him to say public, because that's what it is. I mean, he's not gonna enforce, it's only if you live in this neighborhood that you can, this neighborhood being Somerville Tract. We don't know who lives there. So there is a right, people do have legal right to be there, certain people.
I don't know who they are unless it should happen to unfortunately become an issue, I've never made it one to deny access. I suppose it would be one of those situations where it depends on the circumstances, but my general take on it has been, I'm not going to try to close this off and create a firestorm. It's not worth it.
Because my interest is in public safety of police officers wasting their time because someone has a bias against Johnny Sue for walking through the neighborhood, or someone getting into an altercation because they have a misunderstanding of what is and not required. So from a public safety point of view, maybe making it obvious that yes, you can pass through this with the owner's permission, so that your residents, when they do move in, if it is approved, understand that totally, and that we don't get into a public safety issue.
Understood.
I have something that might help in terms of clarification of the board's role when it comes to public access of the shoreline. So Section 230, Kate Powers, LaBelle Associates, Section 235-35 of the Arundecoit Zoning Code. This is in regards to the WD district, and it says the Town of Arundecoit Planning Board, as part of the site plan and/or special permit review and approval process, may require public access in the form of walkways, pedestrian trails or paths, or bike paths to the shoreline for those development projects or proposed uses adjacent to the shoreline where such access is appropriate and desirable and does not conflict with existing natural features or the public health, safety, or general welfare. In requiring such public access, the planning board may consider the nature of the access to and from surrounding properties and uses, as well as the relationship of the access and proposed use to the water. So according to this section, this project obviously both has to come for site plan review as well as a special use permit, so both of those processes, but it seems like it is a case-by-case basis per the planning board's analysis. So that's something that's on the table, and so if the board wants to see some sort of distinction between that public access and the vehicular access, or if you don't think that it's appropriate, it seems well within your right to comment on.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be interested in doing public access, non-vehicular, no parking, et cetera, for the residents, but keeping as much access to the beach and the waterfront for the public as possible.
Okay, I appreciate that. I just want to reiterate my first question about the access was the railroad access. The railroad easement to see if it cuts through this property, because I know it does run along there someplace. And they're indicating to me, and I no reason to doubt, that section between the southernmost building and the second building is where that would wind up.
Yeah, we can look into that prior to the hearing.
Yep. Thank you.
Any other comments?
I've got a couple. Can you speak a little bit about the parking? What's required and what you're proposing and where and how and
Sure.
so on?
Each unit has 2 parking spaces within the garage itself. We have proposed that parking could take place in the driveway, and then we have additional parking so that the required parking per the code would be 1.5 per unit, required 15 spaces, and we've proposed 31.
Okay. And if I'm looking at some of the parking spaces, I'm down between, if we call building 1 the most southern building, I'm down between, let's just say, buildings 3 and 4, right? There's 2, it looks like striped spaces, like in between those 2, if I'm looking at this right?
Between 3 and 4?
Sure.
Yes.
So that vehicle that's pulled in kind of at a 60-degree angle or whatever that is there, is he intended to back all the way back out towards 3rd Street and then turn around, or do you think he can back north?
I think you can back north.
Okay. That's just something I I would want to just see a little bit better,
We could do a turning.
turning diagram of that.
Sure.
Driving a pickup truck makes me leery of a 20-foot area that I could do
I'm
that in,
not
but
saying that every
So, just
monster SUV these
Yeah.
days is gonna do it in one maneuver.
just something to think about. And then sticking with drive lanes and turning and so on. I see you've got the turnaround down at the north end. I'm pretty sure our fire marshal and at least myself would like to see what fire trucks are doing, ambulances are doing on this site. I'm a little concerned about how, especially a fire truck, being that it would likely or very likely need to be some kind of aerial truck, would have a hard time getting in and getting out of here.
Very good.
My only other question at the moment is, do you know, this might be a little cart before the horse, but do you know HVAC, what you're thinking, what's going to happen? Types of systems, where they are?
Well, it's, we take advantage of the site and it would be geothermal.
Okay.
Sure. And our demographic, really, I should speak to that, I think it'd be helpful for you. It's really intended for people downsizing, the empty nester, somebody who doesn't want maintenance anymore, certainly utility bills. I mean, really, parking inside, getting away from winter. We see snowbirds as a big part of there's a yacht club in the back yard, as you know. And so I think at this point, our as much monthly responsibility certainly to utilities as we can get away. I mean, this is my personal hope, because this is what I would want to live in. And gosh, I mean, with the lake there, it's kind of crazy not to go geo. And if solar were an option, I would even augment it with solar on the roof of our penthouses there on the, what do you call it, the utility
Well,
structures.
the
Just-
elevation's a little deceiving because it looks like the upper level is, another level. It's really just a penthouse, so it's about, I don't know, a third of the building, and it entails a stair tower, an elevator shaft, and a mechanical, so that there would be screening completely of the mechanicals if there were any.
So because there'll still be condensers presumably, so
Right.
So there would be
condensers would be on the roof is the
Yeah,
intent.
there would
Right.
be a place for that, and to speak to the solar thing, if it's possible, I'd like to supplement, the electric with a solar option as well. So to get the utility costs under control as much as possible would be my hope for that. Oh, well, is my hope. It's not a hope. I mean, that's definitely the way I'm gonna go, especially these days.
Okay, thank you.
Can you, the turnaround that you referenced in the north part of how is that supposed to work? I was trying to understand that. The north end of the property, is that just you back it in, or what?
You, I think, drive down and go in nose first, and then you back up and kind of K-turn your way out of there, basically. It's not really intended for anyone to go down that way, but if they find themselves there, and for emergency vehicles, I think it's a place for staging for a fire equipment. If they are coming in and they're fighting a fire, there's a place they can, stage and put down their outriggers and fight a fire.
But are you limited to that amount of space that you have called out? That's what I was trying to understand.
No, it's not. This is conceptual. We are trying to maintain as much natural to the shoreline as possible.
I mean, once he does a turning radius study, I mean, that could change shape, but we've definitely considered the need for something to happen down
Right,
there.
for safety purposes and so
Yeah.
forth.
You could certainly project down another appendage so that you could go forward, back, and change the geometry some, but we're trying, with limited space to meet the objectives.
Keep the green where we can.
And I didn't go down there, but what would these properties, very good-looking properties, look at out their front windows, is what I'm trying to understand.
Well, it's.
I'm trying to understand what's in that lot, and I can't.
Sure,
yeah.
okay, well, as best I could describe it would be your natural inclination to think that the lake view is straight north, which of course it is, but you have buildings in the way, but there's really an exceptional view to the east and really even to the west, because even though Westage Apartments are there, they have a vast parking lot before the first building is even there. So you even have western views as well as north, limited north, and then pretty wide open east views, which would be to the right, you know, to the right as we're looking at the plan. The beach area there has very little few trees on the whole thing. It's quite expansive there. So honestly, the view really is to the north and the east is the primary views. Each unit really has quite a lovely view of the lake, a major.
So unless I'm misunderstanding it, isn't most of the view to the west, though, from the apartments?
I mean, the views there's going to be windows on three sides, so.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure that
There are
out.
views to the west over the garages, but, you know, clearly on the first floor, you're not gonna see anything but Westage garages.
You're kind of, I mean, this view that I've shared with you, believe it or not, is,
It's the west view.
depending how you look at it, but this is the west view.
West
Yeah,
view, right,
you'd be
okay.
pulling in the back. The front would be something like this, which would be the east side. It would have same feel, wouldn't have a garage door on it, but it's the same sense. I mean,
It'd be all glass, a lot of,
right, it would be still in keeping with this, be, you know, porches, obviously, again, the roof terrace view, and, yes, definitely glass. Lots take advantage of the site for sure.
I don't have any other questions. Nate, do you have any this time?
No, I'm just looking at the Google Earth overhead right now, and there's obviously quite a bit of trees existing on the property.
There are,
This
because
plan looks
there's nothing on it there
right,
right now.
Right. I don't know if you have any idea of keeping some of those, or what the plan looks like it's pretty well clear cutting most of it, so.
I would keep what I could.
Yeah.
You know, to be fair. But
They're not specimens of hardwoods by any
No,
stretch.
no, without getting down there, but
the views, interestingly, will be improved with this development rather than the other way around.
Right, there is no view from properties to the east through this property today. So the view shed for the properties to the east will be improved.
Do you have any idea how the neighbors are gonna feel about it? Any input? It seems like this always causes a lot of questions.
Well, I mean, there was some, I'd say, minor objection during our rezoning, but it was not anything that, you know, was,
There was quite a bit of interest with regards to ingress and egress. The town of Arundequoit abandoned Third Street, and it wasn't really cleaned up that well. Just, you know, so it was left to what is precedent law, and, you know, I think the town and the applicant both agree that there's rights to this, to have ingress and egress. So the neighbors may not always agree.
I don't know that, honestly, I can't specifically say. I mean, the neighborhood association, I'm not a resident down there right now, so I have a close friend literally next door who's not opposed. I can only guess that something will somebody will come. I mean, I had people concerned about where they're gonna get to walk their dog, or where the deer are gonna go, or, I had some comments that way, but it remains to be seen. to be frank.
Is it Mr. Lubazetta? Am I saying that correctly?
Labazetta.
Labazetta, are you going to, you said you're not a resident right now. Are you planning on moving into one of these?
I hope so. I've always felt that way, yes, Greg.
And would you take the furthest north?
I don't know.
It's for his engineer.
I do want to just raise one more issue for you. In the narrative on the application page, you indicate that the landscaping is going to be on the east side, so there will be a more robust landscaping plan.
Yes,
then-
it's just because, of course, the west side is devoted to traffic and parking. But yes, it would, and it would transition into what's already there, which is basically open green space, so.
So you'd be interested in keeping some of the more mature trees, I'm sure, if you
Yeah.
can do it without,
If we could do it without,
I would caution that's going to be difficult.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna have to do stormwater and grading and, I think we can do,
I'm just asking what you put on the narrative.
we can replace, I think, better than what's there.
personally, I'd rather not just clear cut, it's just my, but.
Sounds like
from
going to be a fun
practical sense-
conversation.
Yeah, from a practical sense,
And then just one last thing for me is the services like deliveries and mail and that kind of stuff, is that meant to happen on the east side or on the west side of those properties?
West side. That's all, everything happens on that side.
Okay, so there will be,
East side is totally quiet.
you'll either do a big common mailbox area or individuals, depending on what you work out with.
Right. Now, what you may not recognize from this drawing here is that there are permanent garages for the Westage property that
Yep.
are right along that property line. So we've tucked everything against those buildings because it's zero, they're right literally on the line.
No, I know they are.
So it's pretty ideal to tuck our driveway in against it because it's sort of, been dedicated to cars and building anyway. So keeping the green over to the east side was our objective.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the biggest thing is, how the fire trucks, might want to run up, get some input from the fire.
Well,
marshal.
we have a lot of land there that we can easily utilize for whatever. We'll keep it at, what minimum we could get away with, of course, because we are sensitive to keeping as much beach as we can. I don't have any intention to disturb the natural beach that's there. But we also are back far enough that we didn't have to be concerned with the DEC issues, so. But I think we've given ourselves some insulation to be able to play around with that turnaround, should we have to.
Looking forward to seeing it.
Me too.
Anything else?
I have a couple of items.
And you are, no, go ahead.
Kate Powers, Lavella Associates. So I would think in addition to fire emergency vehicles, the board is likely going to want to know how sanitation trucks are going to be able to maneuver the site, and they'll want to see any detail of dumpster enclosure, what they're going to be made of, where they will be placed, et cetera, just because it might be a bit precarious because you obviously don't want it on the north side near the beach, but any additional screening, et cetera. So details on the enclosure for sanitation, lighting, landscaping. Also, in terms of access to each unit, is each unit going to have its own separate access, or will each building have a shared access point?
What you can't see on the buildings, each unit has on the sides an entry point.
Okay, and then also, are you anticipating having a firewall between the units?
I think any time you have multiple units, there's a firewall, yes.
Okay, so I think it might be helpful if, before the applicant moves forward with their special use permit, et cetera, potentially meeting with code enforcement to just distinguish whether these are townhomes or whether they're multifamily dwellings, because those two uses have different requirements. And so the site will be different depending on what each one is categorized as, because townhomes are, you know, units that are adjoined, they have separate entrances on the ground floor, and that there's a firewall between them. So potentially this could be categorized as a townhome, and that has, like I said, different requirements versus a multifamily dwelling. And we all know the code, so sometimes it's difficult to distinguish on the first read. So it sounds like something maybe code enforcement could take a look at. Because,
And we, just in response to that,
Yeah.
we have looked at that and we acknowledge that we fit in part in both categories. We obviously want the density to be able to do the units we're showing. So that is why but we, you know, there's clearly some terms in there that seem to be a little random
Sure.
with regards to one reason or another. And then you throw in, it says multi-unit or something that really mixes it all up. It's like any code. There's lots of
Right.
interpretations.
right, because there's a difference between apartments, multifamily, multiple dwelling, townhome, and some of them seem a bit interchangeable.
And I think that we are proposing, which hasn't come up, which I'm somewhat surprised, these are for rent. And so they are apartments. So
Well,
that-
not based on this code. Apartment is 3 units or more in a building, but I understand what you're saying of, it's not, that townhomes are not traditionally rented.
Okay. Yeah, they don't want to hear us talk code, I don't think.
Sure, so just before the applicant comes for special use permit, either if it's a multifamily apartment, townhome, whatever is categorized, it will need a special use permit, but just ironing that out with, not with us, but with code enforcement to just determine how these residents are categorized so that it can come to you all for a special use permit, site plan, et cetera.
I'm glad you brought up refuse. I guess I just assumed it was going to be toters and, you know,
Right.
and I guess shouldn't assume that.
I think
might
it will be.
It probably actually will be, to tell you the truth. I just soon get away from a dumpster if I can at all. I mean,
A lot of problems with a dumpster, obviously.
Especially in front of this board. No,
We very much appreciate your input, and we look forward to getting back with you. And
yeah, thank you very much.
And,
I mean, this was really wonderful input from you. I appreciate the time you gave us and look forward to next steps.
thank you.
thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
So the next item on the agenda is case number PB 2023-06-2, request by D.H. Lewis Engineering, PLLC, acting as agent for 1944 Titus Avenue, LLC, for subdivision approval and steep slope environmental protection overlay district permit to subdivide a 3.763 acre parcel into 3 lots on premises 1944 Titus Avenue in an R1 residential district.
Good evening, Don Lewis with D.H. Lewis Engineering. I think the main reason we were tabled last time was in regards to the wetland issue and doing a site plan walk with the Conservation Board, and Mr. Richards joined them as well. I think the town arborist, and I think that was it, right, and the owners, Ron Bohr and his brother. So I think the results of that were quite positive. They had a really good understanding of that we weren't disturbing the larger trees they were looking to protect, that the area that we were doing our development within, especially Lot 1, which is of most interest there. The area where we were siting the house is in like an open area. A lot of the trees are, you know, broken willows, half-rotted cherry trees, stuff that had been vine-ridden. There are a few pine trees there listed, but most of the development, again, would be, in fact, 90% of the development would be from Halvern Cove to the south, and the remainder of the more sensitive area, which was of more concern to the Conservation Board, would remain intact and undisturbed. So I know that we had BME Associates was the wetland specialist that we had do the wetland delineation. They had been in contact by the request of the Conservation Board to talk with Labella Associates, wetland specialists, and I think they came to an agreement about a ditch line in question of how that was to be treated as far as what the U.S. Army Corps, how they would look at it, and I think they came to an agreement that it was just truly a ditch line. And I could ask, Wes to chime in if he needs to, but I think he provided correspondence in regards to that back to the board. And I think the remaining issues, I hadn't made revised plans yet back to the board for the preliminary approval, final preliminary approval for the board meeting on the 30th, in anticipation of what that recommendation was back from the wetland specialists and the Conservation Board's concerns. So I did provide Wes with all the comments that we had received 2 months ago from Water Authority, Health Department, Pure Waters, and the DOT. And those can be easily addressed, as well as the comments that Wes had on the plans, most of them technical in nature. So I think the biggest hurdle was the wetland issue, and that, we had also talked with Mr. Richards again about, putting the lower part of the whole that second half of Lot 1 into some sort of conservancy, whether it's a conservation area, an easement over it, something like that, to keep that intact. So that does give, concession to what the Conservation Board wanted as well, and what the intent of the owner of that property wants too, is to be able to look off into that nice natural setting, so.
And I'll just add, the one thing I was unaware of is that there's going to be some fill added in here, like a lot, 8 feet tall. So it matches the other house that's existing already. So when you look at the plan, the intent, my understanding is the intent is to raise the elevation up so it's even with the other property. But I think that I know that we did talk about conservation easements, perhaps even on the northern part of the first 2 lots.
If need be,
Yeah, I mean, that was part of the discussion. I got to be honest with you, I mean, other folks may have read this letter more carefully than I have, but.
The hard part with that would be, you'd be between the lower lot, there'd be a conservation district between the 2 lots. It's kind of almost like a landlocked.
Yeah, it would
That
be.
really-
No, it definitely would be. I agree with you.
Yeah, I don't know.
As I'm saying that, I know exactly what it would do.
That'd be a long contiguous green space that goes down into, behind all that other development. This would be kind of a landlocked thing, and it'd really be only beneficial to the 4 lots around them, so to speak. I mean, not that, I don't think the area is intended for the owners to go in there and do anything more with it anyway. It'd be cost prohibitive anyway. I mean, I don't think there's much they can do with it.
Well, if we don't put anything on it, there will be anything they can do with it, right?
Sure.
I'll let Bernie run the meeting, but is somebody here from the Conservation Board?
That's where I was going next.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stephen Greavy from Conservation Board. Do you have questions? I did not go on the site review. I was out of town when they did it. But from what I gather from other members, it seems like you're addressing the issue that we had, that there were wetland species that were identified there. And, there's a concern because it's a headwaters of a trout stream starts there. And people may not realize that watershed there, there's the species of brook trout that are in there, it's the only place that that they are. But did you make Labella, did you do a study yourself of it sounds like you did.
No, we did. Labella didn't perform a study. Wes Petty from Labella Associates. We did review
Let me back up a little bit. Labella, we first commented on this project back on June 26, 2023, comment letter. There's a few comments there that still remain to be addressed. Subsequent to that letter, we issued a July 10th, 2023 memo specific to the wetland issue. We took a look at aerial imagery. It appeared that there were some potential wetlands in the area. So we advised that the applicant should do a wetland delineation, to which they have done. BME Associates, a very reputable engineering firm and wetland delineators there. They did provide the August 15th, 2023 wetland delineation. And they did identify a wetland on the property to the northern extent, very northern extreme of this property. There's a wetland. They evaluated 5 other locations beyond that wetland, some upland areas and also a ditch. And they provided the details there. We had our wetland ecologist review the wetland delineation report, and Labella is in agreement with everything that they've provided here, inclusive of the categorizing of Ditch A as likely non-jurisdictional, and it is not a wetland because it doesn't contain all 3 components, including hydrophytic vegetation, hydric soils. Those were not present, but wetland hydrology was present. So this would not be classified as a wetland. There has been some erosion within that ditch, which results in some wet soils from time to time.
I'm going to stop you just for 1 second. When you say the word ditch, what area are you talking about on the map?
This is the area that is, so Lot 1, if you look at Lot 1,
Okay,
driveway, the very beginning of the driveway for Lot 1, after the end of Halvern Cove, that's the location of the ditch.
okay.
And if you,
Yep, and I've toured it. I just want everybody else to be able to have the same advantage that
Great.
I have because
Great
I've been on the property.
Great question. So the wet erosive material, that is excluded from what would be considered jurisdictional from the Army Corps. And also, the current development, housing development that's there today, has a stormwater management system that actually conveys flows into that ditch.
Right.
Yeah. So, there's multiple reasons why Labella also feels this is non-jurisdictional in terms of Army Corps of Engineers. With that, what we would like to see on the, with regard to wetlands, what we would like to see on the design plans is the location of this ditch as it was delineated. We'd like to see that on the plans. We would also, we could also request that they show the wetland, but the grading plan and the utility plan that they provided, the wetland that was actually delineated is off the map, is off of their site plan
Right.
because they're not disturbing within that wetland.
Or the buffer.
Yeah, correct, or the buffer. So we don't, Labella has no further concerns with regard to wetland. The BME delineation was very appropriate and very helpful, and the planning board should have confidence in what the applicant provided in that regard.
And then the fill would not change any of this for you. Obviously, it would take care of the wetland entirely.
Yeah, any fill will not be placed in the wetland. We might ask, I don't remember if you provided a profile of the cut and fill profile, but
I can.
if that's something you could provide, maybe with an updated plan set, that would be helpful. And if they've made arrangements or their engineering design includes an opportunity for the upland stormwater flow to go underneath the proposed driveway, right? There's a culvert.
Yeah, it goes, back of the house goes around, there's a
Yep.
culvert. We catch it in a catch basin in a culvert. Yeah.
So we've also got, in addition to myself reviewing the plans and our wetland ecologist, we have our stormwater management engineer taking a look as well. So
And just to refresh my memory with you guys, you intend on putting swales on both the east and west side of Lot 1, correct?
correct.
There's a high point from
the two lots that are to the south go through the woods. There's a high point that graded to the house, 6 inches below the house, finished grade, not finished floor, finished grade. That's in the center of the backyard, and that's the high point. It goes around both sides of the house, yes.
Yep.
And maybe to elaborate a little bit more on stormwater management, it's my understanding that with a residential development where disturbance is between 1 and 5 acres, the only general permit coverage would be erosion and sediment control. So no need for a stormwater management facility, and you're not in a 303D impaired watershed, so also nothing further required in that regard as well. So I think there are some comments from the other agencies that we're interested in seeing getting addressed, and maybe we could ask the applicant while they're here, right? One of the comments from Monroe County DOT was about the frontage and their potential concern, and I think we also made a comment about the site distance for driveways on Titus Avenue. And the frontage on this parcel is between two horizontal curves, which might be challenging for site distance. So I think we'd want to see, the actual site distances identified on the site plan and just confirm that they've addressed the safety concerns in that comment. Any questions for Labella at this point?
Can I get a little clarification on this? Is there an existing culvert there?
No.
Okay. So is there going to be?
Yes.
So
There
there
will
is
be.
going to be a new, because that was our concern.
Yeah, there will be a need to convey.
Because of the chance of erosion there.
Yeah, no, that should be all, that's what I did, because of the extreme grades from the front to the back of this property, say the backyard to the front yard where the fill occurs. Especially on the west side, instead of having such a steep grade down to a culvert, I brought it over to a catch basin, and then within the precast unit, you'd lower it down, then it'd go out. So you're slowing down. Yeah, you're slowing down the velocity and the scouring on the south side, and then on the end section, you put some, your appropriate riprap, again, slowing down the volume and preventing scour off the end of the pipe for what would happen and what would be collected from the rear yard drainage in the lots up from them.
It's too bad in that area that in previous developments that more care wasn't taken for this kind of thing, because it necessitated the town to raise Hoffman Road, and I live on Conifer, 4 foot high, because that kind of attention wasn't addressed there, so.
Right.
Thank you for doing that. Not that that small amount might cause the flooding of the road, but.
Right.
But
Understand.
Conifer Lane my neighbor lost a car in it. The water would sometimes come 3 foot high.
So, Wes, could you go back to, you were making comments about the... Sorry. Wes, you were making comments about the note from Monroe County Department of Transportation about the egress on Titus Avenue. What was your comment about how they should address that, or you want to know if they're going to address it? I'm sorry, I missed what you said there.
Let me just double check.
I see what they said, but are we saying we should ask the applicant tonight what his plans are to address that? That's the part I missed.
Well, I think that's something that we need them to respond with. So in my June 26th letter, comment number 6 was site distance, and we were asking the applicant, their design professional, to depict the site distances for the proposed access points for lots 2 and 3 on the subdivision map. And really, I would have our transportation engineer, once we know what those site distances are, I would have our transportation engineer look at those and identify whether or not there's any further concerns.
Okay, so we don't have that, but we would want that before the next meeting, is that?
It was a comment that was given by John Raymond as well.
Yep.
And again, in not pursuing plan revisions until we got past the wetland issue, we've gone out and done our physical site distance measurements. Haven't put those on the plans yet. We know that one of the biggest problems there, as you're coming from Culver Road going west, is vegetation's just hanging there.
Right.
So I mean, as soon as you clear literally the trees are hanging almost to the ground. If you've ever walked the section of sidewalk there, the vines can be pulled back a lot of that stuff has just not been attended to because it hadn't the need to. So it's somebody's side yard that they didn't care because it's the side of their, other side of their driveway anyway. So a lot of that I think would help if that was taken care of first and foremost. But right now I have site distances according to what's there right now, so.
And you believe those are going to mitigate
I
this?
believe so, yes.
So that you're not going to look at a major redesign to
Correct.
have internal?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, that's what I was trying to understand. Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the board? Anything else from LaBella? I just want to understand, how do we understand what we're going to see next before the next meeting? Is there going to be enough time to?
So I think LaBella would have enough time if the applicant is able to turn around an updated plan set. We would have time to be able to review that, update our comment letter, right? So that you have it in preparation for, or at your next meeting.
Okay, so what's your time limit for them to get that done? Because we don't want to get it the day before, obviously.
I can turn you around plans within a week.
What's the meeting, the 30th?
30th. So if I had you plans by next Monday, I could have you.
Yeah, I think if we got plans by Monday the 23rd, we could turn that around with enough time for you to be prepared for your meeting on the 30th.
I just
And
provided.
enough time for you to address the question.
Yeah, I just provided Wes with a packet of the 4 county agencies and their comments. The Water Authority, Pure Waters, and Health Department are pretty much technical and notes of nature. DOT really had only any kind of comments of concern. And I think the Highway Department had 1 or 2 comments in regards to the end of Halburn Cove. So they're pretty readily changeable.
Okay. I don't have anything else, if nobody else.
We talked about the conservation easement, especially on the north portion. You'll make sure that that's delineated?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. For sure.
Thank you.
Yep, we'll show that.
Is the conservation easement going to be to the town? Has the town asked for conservation easements on other projects too? I'm just curious about the history.
I couldn't tell you the history, my friend.
All right, no problem. No problem.
If there's no other questions from you,
No, we're good.
let's hope we can meet the timelines then.
I'll make sure of it.
Yeah, get to work.
Yeah, I gotta go now.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next case is case number PB 2023-06-5, request by Salvatore Licciardello Esquire, acting as agent for B&R Breeze Enterprise LLC for preliminary final site plan approval for a change in use to operate a restaurant or eating establishment, drinking establishment, grills, bar, etc., with seating provided for more than 30 patrons on premises 4348 Culver Road in a C business district.
Thanks, Michelle. Good evening, Sal Licciardello. So, the last workshop meeting I was at in August, we had a pretty lengthy discussion about this application. It was after I submitted that letter. And I left that workshop meeting thinking that we were pretty close to getting this settled. That August meeting ended up getting canceled. We had a special meeting. At the special meeting, we took about 3 steps backwards. New concerns were raised that in the about 5 months that this has been in front of this board haven't been raised before. And I'm not sure where we're at right now as far as getting this thing approved. I do have a few clarifications. Mr. Richards asked about the liquor license and service on the patio, and I said, I don't think it's getting served out there, and I was wrong. The liquor license is approved for service on the patio. As a requirement or condition of that, they are required to put these like barriers with the ropes that go across. And then those are also posted anytime someone's out there to make sure that someone's not sneaking in. But, you can't get out to the patio from inside anyways, so you don't have the risk of say, someone hopping the fence and sneaking in through the back, like you might have at some other places, so.
Well, I think the idea of the barrier is to stop the alcohol from leaving the premise, period.
Correct, or someone
Okay.
entering the premises.
I mean, and SLA has approved that?
Yes.
Because it's open right now.
Correct. When they have the patio open, they don't leave the barrier up, but they put, I forget what the term for it.
It's a temporary barrier?
Yeah,
And
it's a temporary.
the liquor
so
authority is good with the temporary barrier? And you have that in writing?
I believe that's part of the permit. I did not handle the liquor authority.
It would be helpful for me to see that.
Citing. Sure.
Okay.
So, then we started going off, there were a couple other issues that were raised about putting in a bike rack. And I think we're really getting far away from what needs to be considered here. And I want to step back again and renew my points I raised before that of whether the site plan review is appropriate here. And
Can I just, Mr. Chair, I just want to stop you on that. It's not our decision if you had to be here for a site plan review or not, but you're here. So what we're asking is that you give us the site plan for us to review. We're not responsible for you being here. We want to work with you, we want to make this successful. But when you keep on saying I shouldn't be here and that I'm not going to provide a site plan for that, that was never our decision to make to begin with.
So why don't we move forward? What is the points you're trying to make tonight that need to be addressed?
Well, my point is I'm considering very seriously just withdrawing the application. It's my legal conclusion. I researched through the code, case law, applicable state law, that whether this gets approved or denied would have no consequence. There is an approved site plan for this property. We are in compliance with that approved site plan. And based on my interpretation of the code, I've had discussions with the town attorney. He has been, I need to look into it a little more. It's been a few months. I still haven't heard any pushback. And I respectfully submit this. I understand it might be aggravating because we've been here for 5 months but if you guys were to approve this at the next meeting, which based on our conversation last month is highly unlikely, but if it did happen, we don't have any site development plans. We're not developing the site. And the development that we were laughing, but it's defined in the code.
Stop, let him finish.
It's defined in the code, right? Site development. So the authority for this site plan review is that the planning board has the authority to require a site plan for any site development plans pertaining to, and one of those is a change in principal permitted use. That's purportedly why we're here. I've made the argument before that the principal permitted use has not changed. I still believe that principal means one, or the ultimate, that there can only be one on a property, and that is the one that's under subsection 10 for a shopping plaza. That use of the property hasn't changed. I'm raising a separate point now that I also don't think there's any site development plans here. You guys may disagree, but development is defined in the code, and it's not to cover something that we're doing here. I can read the definition, but it talks about structural alterations, enlargements, construction, or subdivisions of land. So I'm renewing it again because my client believes that if this were to get denied, that we have no choice but to appeal this to the highest authority. But I think that would be futile because even if we won, this is not like me saying, oh, we're going to take this to an Article 78, but I'm just flushing it out. If it did come down to that, what would I ask the court to do? To issue our building permit? We don't want one. There's no site development plans here. Based on what the code says, when you have what we're trying to do here, which is restaurant for seating with more than 30, all that's required is that we get a special use permit. And we did that. And if there was a problem where they said, well, we can't issue the special use permit because there's not enough parking, and we got denied for a variance, and now we have to construct new parking, site plan review. But we were able to get a variance to use the existing premises. It's still my position. And I asked the town attorney this, and I don't want to put him on the spot when he's not here. But I did not get any pushback that the town wouldn't have, there'd be nothing to enforce.
So it's a workshop. Okay, so it's a workshop. We don't have the town attorney.
I understand that.
What is it you plan on doing? Because we're here to review the site plan you gave us, which was the existing site plan. Some comments were made, and you need to respond to those or not, and either move forward or withdraw. What is it you're planning on doing? I'm just asking for simplicity, because I don't want it to be a one-to-one.
Mr. Chairman, let me see if I can bring some clarity. We have a site plan review, we have a new restaurant in place, and all we asking is to show a couple of variables on that plan. One being a bike rack, and some other items which you've indicated exists, the liquor license, etc. Here's my issue, is that the restaurant has had a lot of resistance from the community, and that the more compliance there is, then the more likely that the resistance will go away. So I don't think that what we're asking for is extensive. It can probably be done with a pencil drawing. So that's my concern, is to have the restaurant in as much compliance as possible, so that the resistance could be answered. Does that make sense?
Yes, but in compliance with what?
With the code and what the planning board has asked you to do.
Okay. I know drawing it on the paper I don't think is the issue, but we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars for a new business that, if I can be frank, is struggling right now because we're getting into the lower season right now. It's very seasonal down there. And there are financial burdens that would place a great deal of hardship on the restaurant. And that's why I also believe that the asks here are not tailored to mitigate against a defect in the site. Maybe they would make the site better by some scale. I don't know that, but when you have an existing site and you're not altering it, we can't expect that the new tenant coming in is going to bring the site up to all the site design criteria. And I think that what's happening is we're picking and choosing a few of the site design criteria that, well, the window tint or bike rack, the dumpster enclosure, while not, either they all apply or none of them apply, right? Because, it's an old building. The sewer laterals are probably smaller than what's required now. So if we're going to replace the dumpster enclosure, then let's jack up the road and put new sewer laterals in too, right? Either the whole site has to comply with the site design criteria, or we're picking and choosing them based on opinions and arbitrarily choosing which ones should apply.
Well, I don't think I resist the thing about arbitrary. I think it was the things we asking to apply, the dumpster, et cetera, was exactly from the community that stated that this is an issue for the community. Some of those issues were addressed. The planning board had a couple other additional things for you that I don't think would take tens of thousands of dollars to answer, even at your rate of charge. So I think it's just asking for a small, a couple of things that we had left from the board for the site, and then we're okay.
Yeah, so I'm looking for clarity. What is it you believe that the board's looking for that either you want to address or you want to state you're not going to address and move this forward?
Well,
I think I'd just like to get that clarity, just so we're all on the same page.
Sure. With the main three things that were brought up by the board over the course of the first 3 or 4 months, and it had been the same points, were parking, dumpster enclosure, screening to the east. We have addressed the parking, obtained a license to use the parking at Parkside Diner. Steps we took, costs we incurred that were, reasonably tailored to mitigate against a defect, right? We didn't have enough parking. we got to address that. It was not free. Blue Palm spent money to do that. They got that done. The dumpster enclosure, it was asked to be, torn down and replaced. Anywhere else we put that on the property, because right now it's pre-existing, so it's staying there and it's partially in the right of way. If we had to tear it down, we got to move it south, out of the right of way, and we'd lose parking. It's another reason, I don't even think I put that in the letter. I mean, the letter was pretty long, but it was a while ago, but, and none of the neighbors complained about that dumpster enclosure. It blends in, it's surrounded by trees, it's made out of wood. Nobody complained about that. I mean, I was at all those meetings, I don't remember that
So you
being
addressed
brought
the,
up.
you
And
addressed the parking,
the
the dumpster enclosure. We also got a letter from the Department of Transportation correct? Public Works, I'm sorry. I'm getting mixed up with the different departments. The Department of Public Works that it was not a problem.
Correct. So, yeah, so I
So there's,
firmly believe there was zero pushback.
there's two checks there. So what was
And
the,
then screening to the east, I submitted pictures in that letter. I mean, I don't know if you guys have it, but, there already is a lot of screening to the east. It's on the neighbor's property, but there's a row of hedges and some trees.
we got a letter from the neighbor that said it was okay.
And a letter from the neighbor that, not just that it's okay, but that she's strongly opposed to seeing,
right.
us plant trees or something right next to her trees.
So you've addressed all three of those?
Addressed all three of those. Then we get to the special meeting and, okay, well, forget all those. We got 4 or 5 new issues here at, 5 months into the
Can you
process.
tell me what those are, just so we're all on the same
So it
page?
was a thing about the liquor authority that, was brought up. Apparently the window tint that has been there since Mazzaroni's was there, and it's the same tint that's on the other windows in the plaza, which this town just approved the change of use for without a site plan review. Same tint.
I'm sorry,
that
what
was
was the
brought
second
up.
part?
There's the shop next to us, the smoke shop that's there, they have the same tint on their windows. And they changed over, a new operation moved in when they opened up. I brought up the fact that was not subjected to a site plan review. I understand, I think LaBella pointed out in one of the past meetings that the town wanted to treat it as retail, even though it went from like a print shop to selling drug paraphernalia, but it was close enough that it didn't warrant it. As in the case here, where we got a restaurant with 30 seats versus the restaurant with 60 seats, which is apparently substantial enough to trigger that review.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I can see that the mirror tent is on the top of the building, and I think we thought it was on the whole building. The mirror tent is on the top. I think that's the issue, so I can see that point, that the tent hasn't changed.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and we didn't, again, nothing changed on the site. There is, in the town, there's a stamped set of plans that's an approved site plan for this property, still 100% in conformance with that.
Okay. But was there other things? You said there was like 5 things, so what were the other?
So I said 2 already. I might have exaggerated. Then there was the bike
I only
rack.
heard one. Oh, the liquor authority.
So liquor authority, window tint, bike rack.
Liquor rack.
Was there?
In all fairness, the liquor authority was not the liquor authority, it was the enclosure and safety of the liquor on the outdoor seating, that to be closed off. And that was my question to you, and you said, no, liquor authority is good with the temporary barricade, is what you've presented to me this
Just
evening.
now, yes, correct.
Right.
That's what was.
And then
I
a bike
didn't-
rack, I think, was the only other thing that we asked for, and you're sitting on a bike path, a county designated bike path and a state designated bike path.
Yeah, so is it from a practical consideration? I mean, I can see why you're asking that. You're on a bike path. And if the town wants to put one in the town right away there, we have no objections to that. But we're also, they're not open for lunch anymore. Sorry, okay, no, I'm gonna stick with what I'm talking about. My brain's going all over the place right now. We're not open for lunch anymore. It's only open for dinner, with the exception of Sunday. So practically no one has, in the time that they've been open, biked there. I think there is one employee that bikes there, but they store their bike inside the building. And we also already have a problem right now with kids in the neighborhood. they use our parking lot as a cut-through, and they bring their bikes over, and they buy stuff at 7-Eleven. You know, you find them in the parking lot out there all the time. They go to 7-Eleven, they buy the little Fireball things and the cigars, and they hang out by that dumpster, and we're worried about inviting more of the kids in the neighborhood biking around there. And then also, we're only open for dinner, so it's usually dark out, and people aren't biking at that time. So, you know, in the experience that they've had there, they've been open now for, a few months, and the people aren't biking there. I think if we did put a rack out, that it'd end up getting utilized by, people that aren't customers. So, just as a business decision, they don't want to make that change in their business. They don't, and I don't think it's something that should hold up this site plan approval, but in a perfect world.
So I'm going to
it'd be nice.
clarify more going forward. You've made your case on all of those points. Is that what you want to put forward and then take it to us? Or you started this with, you were thinking of withdrawing? Which way are we going? So, just so I know where we're heading.
Well, I was hoping I'd get a more concrete answer back from the town attorney as to that point. What I don't want to do is get in a situation where the statute of limitations is starting to run for my client. Even if I evaluate that there is no consequence, if the town is in the position that there is a consequence to that, I would have to act on it. There's only 30 days, and I really don't want to do that.
So I'm still a little confused, so let me...
I'm still confused, I'm being
Okay,
honest
so
with
my
you.
question to
I
you
am.
is, do you want to have a conversation with the town attorney before you bring it forward next month, or on next meeting? Or do you want to bring it forward with your position, which we will then take, discuss, and render back? That's kind of where we're at, I think, unless anybody has any further questions at this
The only
point.
thing I will add is that the public hearing, my recollection, has not been closed on this case.
Right. So there's one other thing I heard, I wasn't at the last workshop, but I did watch the tape. And then there was a new accusations, was it the fire marshal? Brought forward complaints from the neighborhood.
Yeah, that was the...
Has that been resolved, or is it?
Yes, so I spoke with the fire marshal, and I'll be honest, we had a good conversation. That report that was issued was partially incorrect. My biggest point is that the report purported to rely on an observation that was conducted by the fire marshal. In reality, it wasn't. It was based on phone calls that the fire marshal had received from a particular neighbor who is opposed to the Blue Palm being there. So when I spoke with the fire marshal, the only issue he had was that the hours of operation that were posted were not the same as what the town had authorized when they issued the special use permit. So I think the special use permit, we said like Monday through Thursday, 1 to 11, but the Blue Palm ended up changing that. Now they're closed on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and they were trying to stay open a little bit later on Thursdays. They advertised till midnight instead of until 11. Also Sunday, they were advertised as being open a little bit later. I believe that's been changed. If you like on Google, if you look up the Blue Palm, it tells you the hours. And, they're still trying to figure out a business plan here. As I said, this time of year kind of dies down. Really, all you're hoping to do is get some business during the Bills games and whatnot. And, I think on Sunday, when the Bills had the Sunday night game, they stayed open a little bit later, and I think some of the neighbors complained. And I think with the Thursday night football, sometimes they stay open. But I had a talk with them, and I explained that, well, you told the town you're staying open till this time, you got to close at that time. So they have agreed to change that, and they did change it. So I believe it's been resolved. I did not seek a written, closing out of that violation from the fire marshal yet, though I probably should have done that sooner.
Just let me ask the town staff, have we received any update from the fire marshal?
No update has been provided to staff.
Can we get that update prior to the next meeting, if there is an update? If there isn't one, then I take it it
Yes.
stands. Okay, thank you.
Oh, I just want to point out too that letter, when you read it, you're like, whoa, what are these guys doing? People urinating and they're doing this, and that. And he confirmed with me that a lot of those points were things that were brought up back in February and March, you know, before I showed up and like laid the law down with them. And they were, I think, still figuring out their operation and before they had it cleaned up. You know, they really have cleaned up their act, and I think that's evidenced by, I mean, you guys remember when I first came here 5 months ago, there was a room full of people, and they stopped showing up because
There's still a public hearing. You don't know who's going to show up the next one, so.
well, I mean, I challenge you to, no, I'm just kidding. Don't,
Okay.
anyone's
So
watching at
my
home.
question to you is, I heard the things you talked about. It wasn't 5 extra, sounds like it was 3 extra, right?
Well, it was-
you
yeah,
have-
and the fire marshal was 4, but that wasn't a condition of the site plan, it was just.
I just remember there was something regarding the fire marshal that came up. So my
Correct.
question, once again, is, do you still want to talk to the town attorney before you come back? Or do you want to come back, present your case, and get a ruling from the planning board? That's what I'm trying, that's where I think we're at this point. Unless you need more information from us or the town staff.
Well, to be honest, I would like Labella's interpretation, because if that's possible, I don't know if, I mean, they don't work for me, so I can't ask them to chime in.
We did get an
but-
interpretation from Labella at one point here.
So we typically don't interpret the code, right? We're not the folks that interpret whether or not you need to come for site plan review. Like yeah, the town code tells you you need to be here, right? And I understand that there's frustration on both sides, and that's a result of the code being messy, right? And the code has been, I think, my observation has been piecemealed over different years and to address different things, and it's really made it difficult for projects like this to move forward in a clean fashion, right? We're getting stuck in all sorts of mud here. You know, given the status of the code, what I might suggest, and because it seems like you're almost ready to cross that finish line with site plan review. That's what it feels like to me. I don't know if it feels that way for you or your client, but if you're able to provide a site plan drawing that identifies, you know, here's how we would like to move forward, that responds to the concerns that the planning board has expressed, right? It seems like you're almost there. It seems like if you could bring that forward for the planning board to act on, I think you're there, you know? I'm happy to do some coordination with the town attorney, Nixon, just to get this item back on his radar again, if it's been lost or whatnot, just to talk about whether or not, you know, there would be repercussions if you were to withdraw your application. What does that do to the business? But you know, I think from my standpoint, I'd like to see it finish the site plan review process and provide an updated drawing. It doesn't sound like they're asking for too much.
Oh, so I did provide a site plan.
Right.
And, you know, as I said, I submitted it with the application.
Has it been updated to reflect, though, the things that they wanted to see, like the bike rack or?
No, because my client doesn't want to put anything on the site. He wants to leave it the way it is.
Okay.
And I did,
I think you have your answer then, right?
So that's why I was clarifying. So if that's what you want to put forward, I think we're at that point, unless you want to have some kind of conversation with the town attorney. I think you just make your case for your client and put it before the board. If you don't want to put a bike rack, you explain why you don't want to put the bike rack. They've told you why they want it there. It's on a bike path. We think it would be a good idea. I myself am probably going to go look and see if other businesses have bike racks. I haven't looked myself. I don't know if you have.
We have required bike racks at the blood plasma place. We've required bike racks at every site
Okay,
plan.
so you made your point why you wanted to make it. My point
Right.
is,
Well,
I'd
you're
like to know.
asking me a question.
Well, I'm asking if, does Parkview
There's a
have
bike rack at Union.
Is there one at Parkview? There's one at Union?
Parkview
That tells
has
me
one,
that
yes.
it's not a crazy question to ask for, and it's not a huge expense. But you can make your case any way you want. That's why I'm asking you, you know, Wes said he would help mitigate over code. They've already provided a response to the site plan you put in, correct me if I'm wrong, June 26th.
right, and everything
And you've
on it
addressed,
has been addressed.
you've addressed, you know, everything at that point. These were some new items that came up. you need to either present your case, what you want to do. If your case is you don't want to do it, then you can put that forward, and the town, and the board will rule. Or do you want to talk to the town attorney? That's what I'm trying to get out of you at this point.
I think I'd like to talk with the town attorney first. I mean, I don't think we're gonna make an alteration to the site plan and show a bike path or show, relocating existing structures or anything like that. I'm talking about the dumpster enclosure, because it is an accessory structure. So that position has been the same, since I first came in here. I said that, we're not proposing any
Got it.
structural alterations. All the points that were raised by Labella, and, we addressed those. And again, I want to stress, we're not just flat out saying, hey, we're not going to do anything here. I mean, there have been tangible improvements made here. When I first got here, there was another dumpster that was unenclosed, and all the trash was only being picked up once a week. That dumpster's gone, it's being picked up twice a week. We have signs up that direct people not to block parking on Mary Knoll. And I think from the beginning, the biggest issues was parking. Do we have enough, and how do we stop patrons of the restaurant from interfering with the neighbors parking on Mary Knoll? I mean, that was really the crux of it.
And I think we've recognized you've addressed all those. And I would just,
Correct.
when you're coming back, if you're going to make your case, whatever it is, just bring up all those points and make the case. And we're not here to argue legalities with you. If you want to have those discussions with the town attorney, you can do it at the meeting. I would suggest you have it ahead of time. But I just need to know, are you going to come back to the next one, or you don't know yet at this point?
Are you going to be here at the next meeting?
Am I going to be here?
Yeah.
I'm planning on it, but you never know. Last time I got
I'll be
sick,
in
so.
there. It's hard for me to make a decision, because at the last meeting, it seemed like the board was so strongly going to vote no. Mr. Richards told me very unequivocally that if I put it to a vote that day, that it wasn't going to happen. I'm concerned that
So just so you
based
know,
on-
one person can't speak for the whole board, but yeah.
Just to say, I was not speaking for the whole board. What I told you was there were 4 people in attendance, that all applications, I made this announcement at the beginning, every applicant would have to have a unanimous decision to move forward,
Right,
because 4 is the required number
correct.
based
So-
on this, the size of this board. Didn't give you an idea one way or another if it was going to go up or down. And that's why I asked what you wanted to do.
Okay.
And you conferred with your client, is my recollection.
No, that's correct.
And your client actually directed you,
Right, so
right? Wasn't that,
more or less.
that's what I thought had happened.
Well, yeah, so I had brought up some, we're kind of like we're talking today, making our case. You brought up those other 3 points, and you said that you wouldn't be able to approve this unless the bike rack, the window tint, and the liquor thing was
He was
addressed.
speaking for himself, and obviously he
Right.
was explaining to you there's only 4 people.
Correct,
that
but then
night.
after you made that point, you said, may I remind you, you need a unanimous vote, and a couple of the other members also said, yeah, I'm still a little worried about that too, and I think Mr. Evans mentioned that you were still concerned about the dumpster. So I talked with my client and said, hey, if they put it to a vote tonight, it's gonna get denied. And he asked me what happens if it gets denied, and I did a lot of digging into that and came back with a conclusion, which I started with, maybe foolishly, that I don't think it matters, because we already have a special use permit, we're permitted to be there, we don't need any site development plans, we don't need to pull any permits, we're in conformance with an approved site plan, and that's what I'd still like to talk with the town attorney on.
I'm gonna defer to the staff here, because I think
Mr.
we're
Chair,
kind of back where we were.
We're right back
Yeah.
where we were beginning.
Yeah,
And we keep going over and over and over
know.
the same thing for the past hour now.
I know, I should.
So, we need to make a decision on how we're gonna move forward, whether or not you're gonna update your site plan and submit it for the planning board per their recommendations, or you're gonna talk to the town attorney. We need to,
Okay, I was talking to the town attorney.
Well, there's
and,
another option there. You're gonna stick with your current site plan and make your case before the planning board. That's an option. Correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle. You're right, so that's not just
So
the 2 options.
I think before I choose from the 2 options, I'd like to consult with the town attorney of whether to stick with what we have or update it or withdraw it. I'd like to get a more concrete idea of where the town stands as far as
Okay.
possible enforcement actions go.
So our overall goal is for success of your business. So as Andre was trying to explain there, so that's what we're here for.
Completely appreciate it. I just have, and again, I'm kind of the messenger here, and I know it seems like I'm giving you guys a lot of pushback, but I'm really just trying to advocate for what is in the best interest of my clients and what what they really want to do there and what they're.
That's what they hire you for, we get it. So we just need clarity on what you want to do, which way you're going to go.
I'm
That's all.
sorry, because I'm still not sure about it, but
Okay.
yes, I should probably just get out of here so everyone else can get up. Because
No, you can, if there's any other questions you have, that's what we're here for. We're ready.
All right, well, thank you all very much.
Okay.
Next case on the agenda is case number PB 2023-10-1, request by Robin Coburn for wetland, steep slope, and floodplain environmental protection overlay district permits to construct a new single-family dwelling on premises 673 Seneca Road in an R2 residential district.
Hi, everyone. Sean Condon, GDS Engineering. I'm here on behalf of Roman for the proposed site plan application involving a single-family home at 673 Seneca Road in the town of Arundecoit. Pretty straightforward application, new application. It's consistent with the subdivision that it lies in that was filed in 2013. We're developing on lot RB2, which is a third of an acre, and it's a 1,400 square foot, two-story, single-family home with attached two-car garage, driveway off of Seneca Road. We're proposing services by private residential sanitary sewer pump station, pressurized sewer lateral to connect to the laterals that were developed as part of the subdivision. And then we're also proposing water service connected to the Seabreeze Water District. Due to the small size of the lot and irregular shape, we're actually submitted a zoning application for area variance for front yard setback on the Seneca Road side and for the water side of the property. And as you guys are well aware, similar to Roman's other property, it's all the E-pods, pretty much. We are in the wetland, floodplain E-pod, woodlot, and steep slopes. We tried to position the house on the property to avoid as much environmental mitigation as possible. And that's why we are also going for the variance so that we can stay out of the steep slopes and the trees as much as possible. We've provided backup for the E-pod application in the application packet, so everything should be there, but if there's anything we need to provide additionally to the board to help resolve any issues, we're absolutely willing to do that. Again, pretty consistent with the other property, so I'd like to get all your input.
Anybody have questions? I just have one question at the top. There's a letter from the Conservation Board. You've had time to review that?
Yes, yeah, we received it. We reviewed it, and we'll prepare a response and submit it probably end of the week. Seemed mostly landscape based. We will swap out the trees for native species, obviously.
What about Steve Reedy from Conservation Board? What about there was concern about the proposed wall that you intend to build?
Yes, the retaining wall.
Yeah, the retaining wall, and we're concerned that the disturbance of the soil there could be an issue. Is there any way they can move it so that there's less impact on that?
So the way that we have the building positioned right now, we have enough space in the driveway for a car to park there without impacting the road. And if we moved it any closer, then we would be impeding people's ability to park in front of the garage. So we pushed as far to Seneca Road as we possibly could with the building layout that the client is looking for. And then we'll have to, have the 6-foot high retaining wall.
There's a disturbance on that slope is a big issue, because it's really unstable. I guess that's why you necessitate the retaining wall.
Yeah, and that's why we also
Hopefully-
tried to pull it away from the steep slopes as far as we possibly
Sure.
could.
Can you just explain what is the purpose of the retaining wall? I mean, what,
We're developing in the steep slopes, and so as you know, those are between, I think it's 15 and 30% slopes. Standard grading practice is 1-on-3s. So
right,
if
why not just, I haven't studied the grades well enough, so maybe I'm just missing something here, but,
if we also, you don't want to add in a ton of fill there. This is a nice balance between excavation and fill on the front side of the property, while also maintaining drainage towards the Seneca Road side. No matter where you cut it, you're going to be in those steep slopes, and you're going to need some sort of wall, because you're not going to be able to catch grade by just grading.
but why can't the wall move, looking for a north arrow here, why can't the wall move closer to Seneca Road?
Oh, so there's a door on the building there. So there's access on that side.
Right, but the door is, I don't know, I'm just graphically looking here, 10 feet. The hinge side of the door is 8-10 feet away from where you're showing the wall. Why couldn't the wall move further towards the door?
So it's probably, I have to break out a scale, but it might be 2 to 3 feet away from the door there.
It's definitely not. Sorry, I'm looking at the plan. Unless I'm missing something here, if a door is
It's a
3
pretty-
feet wide,
It's a pretty high scale.
right, but if a door is 3 feet wide,
There's a window there as well, so we would be pulling the retaining wall close to the window. We could pull it in as much as we possibly can. I see what you're saying. Definitely understand it. We pull it in, we'll still be developing.
what's the window for? Can the window be eliminated?
I'd have to confer with the client. That's, their building layout.
Okay, well, I think
We could
I
discuss it
echo,
for sure.
yeah, I echo conservation's concerns. I mean, I live basically on a steep slope like this, and I can speak very directly to the issues that happen just with general erosion in my backyard, which is relatively flat, but then goes down a steep slope because it's all sandy soil. So, I guess I just want to really understand why the retaining wall has to be at the corner of the building.
Right, well, you're not, just based off of, if you look at the grading plan, we're really not gonna be able to get out of the steep slopes. We can pull that retaining wall to minimize height, and disturbance as much as physically possible, and I'll confer with the client about the building layout and the floor plan and what there's options to do with that window. But those were things that were considered when we put this together.
Okay, but I just think in response to conservation's comments,
We'll
think,
include something in there.
looking at that, I understand it's the client's desire to have a door and a window there. You don't have to have a door and a window there. So, if there's mitigation measures that overrule desires, they may make some sense.
Yep.
So
We'll talk to them. There's a number of things that I had to discuss with the client about the building layout, because it was brought to our attention that we also need a zoning variance for the garage. So it's, also something that can be avoided by just shrinking the garage a foot. So I'll
You get
be
where
sure
I'm coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be sure to bring it up, and we'll go from there.
Thank you.
and I'll lay out everything in the response, so.
okay, thank you.
Another thing the Conservation Board had concerns about was, and I got the plans, but I didn't see any side elevations. Is there a full basement, or is it a crawl space under this?
There's no basement. Crawl space, I'll have to, it's just a
Okay.
crawl space.
Yeah, because I think there was like a window under the ground floor level, and so I was asked to bring that up. That if it's because if it is a full basement,
Yeah,
then digging down would put you
yeah,
down below the floodplain.
right. As
So you get encroachment of water there at times, and it would, something. But if it's a crawl space, I think, looking at the elevation, I don't think that's an issue.
there's definitely no intent for a basement.
Okay, very good.
Sorry, just to go back to my point a second ago. The window in question that we're talking about, if I'm looking at this plan right, is in a closet. So I think there's
I don't have the floor plan.
certainly
I don't have. Yeah,
possibility of
yeah,
discussing.
I don't have the
That's
floor
all.
plan in front of me, but absolutely.
Sure it's not a small bedroom? Or, no?
Might be my bedroom.
Do we have any comments from Labella?
Hi, K Powers LaBelle Associates. So we had Mary Stebline look at these. We'll have more formalized comments for the hearing. However, I don't believe they're printed out currently for you, but I believe that they're in the digital files in the folder that was provided by Michelle, the approved subdivision. And so it looks like both the size and the orientation of the building on the approved subdivision is not consistent with what's approved here. The orientation of the building in the subdivision, it looks like it only calls for removal of one tree versus with the new orientation, there's removal of 7 trees, including at least 3 or 4 within that steep slope area. Also, the approved subdivision has a rain garden as well, and additional landscaping. And so it seems like maybe some of the issues that might be occurring with the current configuration of the site, they may be improved with being closer in consistency with the approved subdivision. However, if the applicant decides to move forward with their current orientation with the retaining wall, we're likely going to need some additional information. We're going to want to better understand the drainage and the discharge of drainage from behind the wall, where the steep slope is, as well as we're going to want to see location of downspouts for the structure as well. Mary included a note here saying surface runoff or downspout water will not be allowed to discharge on slopes greater than 15%. Said water shall be discharged from a closed drainage system to the toe of the slope or into a recharge structure or a dedicated stormwater system, as well as a couple of other items from Mary. But I would suggest that the board look at the previous approvals, the subdivision that was previous approved. There's about 7 sheets there, and compare. Just because I also believe that the DEC permits were based on the 2013 subdivision, as opposed to what's currently being proposed. But obviously, the applicant can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But we'll have more formalized comments for you all before the hearing on October 30th.
I think we do have,
Oh, do you?
isn't that what she was referring that we don't have? Yeah, we do have a copy.
Oh, great. Thank you, Michelle.
So with all of these comments, are you still going to be prepared to come before the board?
Yes.
Yes.
Just an idea of when would we get a copy of those comments? Is it like the day of the meeting or?
It's usually the week before the meeting.
Okay, no, it's nice because then.
Sure.
I can
Well, I completely
respond,
understand.
Bring it in and then I'll usually try to have something formal.
So-
Okay.
So could we summarize what and Michelle, I don't know if you captured it all, what he needs to look at prior to the next?
Yes, and I would love the board's input as well. I have CB concerns with the retaining wall that is being proposed. Disturbance on the slope is 15 to 30% disturbance. The board echoes the CB's concern with erosion. Look into mitigation measures regarding the retaining wall location. The window is located within a closet. No basement proposed, just a crawl space. I have approved subdivision comparison to the proposed development regarding the current orientation of the home. Drainage behind the wall and location of downspouts. Labella recommends the PB to look at the previous approvals. Granted. New York State DEC permits seem to be based on the previously approved subdivision.
I would add orientation and size, because the conservation indicated that reducing the size may solve some of the issues.
And size of the home. Perfect. Am I missing anything, board?
Drainage in relation to the retaining wall.
Drainage behind the retaining, okay, so drainage in relation.
Did you capture anything else that we missed? Or
No, I think that's everything.
anybody else on the board, anything else? I think we're good.
All right.
If, you know, a lot of work to do before the next meeting.
Stephen Griffey, Conservation Board. Can I ask why, were you aware of the orientation from this previous?
We do have the copy of the 2013 approval. I'd have to take a closer look at it. Our orientation's is, we're talking about a third of an acre, so I'd say our orientation's pretty close. We actually even tried to get away from the front yard setback going to the zoning board because the previous approval showed a 20-foot yard setback. So, you know, again, trying to get it away from the E-pods as much as possible.
But
I would-
according to Lobella, the original site plan involves less cutting into the steep slope and only disturbing one tree, significant tree, as opposed to 7, so that's a huge.
Is there a garage in the original one? So it's
Yeah.
2-car parking
Okay.
driveway and then just the building. So it's you know, I understand that that's how the subdivision was created and it makes sense and we'll do
Sure.
everything that we can to
Okay.
accommodate that, but there's not a ton different from what's being proposed here.
The garage is
that's
making
being
a big difference in
Yeah.
being able to take the original
Yeah,
configuration.
and again, there's this proposal, the single-family home is pretty consistent with the surrounding buildings on the other properties. So that's, you know, what we're kind of basing this all off.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like, I looked quickly at the 2013 plan that's in our packet that Michelle provided, and it looks like the majority of all the questions are being driven by the garage. Right, the garage was not on the previous plan. Consistent or not with neighbors, it's, you know, this is the lot we're dealing with, not the
Yeah.
neighbor's lot. So, you know, I think to Conservation's comment and my feeling as well is, I think size needs to be reviewed seriously with the applicant because it's causing all the problems that we're talking about. So, self-created problems.
Is there anything else? No? All right, thank you very much.
Next case, we have case number PB 2023-10-2, request by Sycamore Green for preliminary final site plan approval to construct a plus or minus 2,500 square foot community building, updates to building facades and site-related improvements on premises 17 Strathmore Circle in an R5 residential district.
Good evening. My name's Dan Buchanan. I'm with Carmina Wood Design, 487 Main Street, Buffalo, on behalf of the applicant. The property we're talking about is Strathmore Circle, Sycamore Green Apartments. I have 55 Strathmore, I think is the mailing address, and that's why maybe we have it screwed up a little bit here. So
Yeah,
I'll correct that on our application.
There's a little parcel in the front that's actually 55 Strathmore Circle with a different tax ID.
Okay.
Versus-
And that I think is their current office building then, which is
that's-
like a house?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Makes sense. So we'll change that to 17.
Yeah, that came from the county, actually. The county caught me on that.
Okay.
Which was good.
Not a problem. So Sycamore Green Apartments, existing, built in, we're not sure, 50s, we think. It was renovated in 78 with some canopy front entry details, but it's 39 buildings, comprising 194 apartments, 1 or 2 bedroom apartments, mostly 2 bedrooms here. What our client is proposing to do to the whole entire site is renovate everything, interior, exterior. So to this point, I've met with code enforcement and the fire marshal to talk about a lot of the interior work that we were hoping to get started sooner. It's actually not going to, they'll all go together, but all the apartments will be renovated kind of down to the drywall. So new finishes, flooring, everything updated, appliances, fixtures, infrastructure. As we get to the site and what we're looking at here, we're really going to try and leave alone a lot of the underground infrastructure that's there. We've identified a couple areas of stormwater issues that we need to repair. We've had companies look at sanitary. We're having the entire site cameraed and reports generated so that we can address anything that would be an issue. I know that there's a pump station here and they have issues. So we're really trying to figure out, it's just bad design, how to make it better. So the first step is taking a look at everything, getting a report, and whether we tear stuff up, which we don't really want to do, or we line it or jet it, but take care of the infrastructure. Fire marshal did at one point suggest that there's a concern with water pressure. I don't have a great answer yet, but we will before the meeting. There is something wrong on the site. I think there's a leak. We've engaged with Monroe Water Authority. They've confirmed they have pressure at our meter. Our hydrants aren't working. I mean, they are, but they're not working very well. So they've got a lot of people looking at it right now. They just sent me an email. Kind of just says we don't have an answer yet, but everyone's looking. So the next step is they're going out with listening devices to look for a leak. That's really all that it could be. But obviously they're paying for that water, so they'd like to find it. So in that site improvements, new sidewalks, new asphalt, parking striping, and then with the 194 units, we're not adding or removing any. However, we're going to take 10 and make them accessible. I don't know how familiar you are with these apartments. They are partially subterranean, so there's 3 floors, a garden level unit that's, so you enter mid-level between the lower garden level, which is partially subterranean, and then the first floor, which is elevated. So essentially you walk up between 2 and 5 steps, get into the door, and then you either go up 4 more feet or down 4 more feet. So it's really challenging. On the back side of the buildings, there's an areaway that gets you down. So we're going to do new ramps and create an accessible route from the back to 10 separate garden units, just to try and get some accessibility here. In doing that, we'll do accessible parking. According to our survey, there's 5 accessible spots here, which is, they're just someone painted accessibility symbols in the road and there's a curb next to it, so I don't know how they're accessible. So we're proposing 19 spaces. Part of the reason there's so many is we're gonna add a community building. The community building in the center of the property should be located on the site plan. It's about 2,800 square feet. This will relocate the leasing office, which is in a residential house adjacent to the property. It'll create a community room that's next to the current playground, which will be replaced. A fitness facility, and then some maintenance infrastructure within that, as well as a centralized mail and parcel area, so we don't have FedEx kind of going everywhere around the property. That building's proposed to be placed where there was an existing in-ground pool that someone filled in. I don't know when it was filled in. It was on the survey we just got. I promise it's not there. But we did some soil borings there. Looks like they kind of just crushed it up and filled it in. So we'll be building the building there, likely excavate all of that and, get down to good soil. But that building proposed there with some parking updates. Right now that Strathmore is a big loop. And there's a crossover right when you come into the property on both sides that's blocked off. You can kind of squeak through there with utility carts or something like that. But we'd like to open that up so we can just have a little more accessibility to the whole site. And other than that, I think, yeah, oh, you guys, so there are dumpsters here. They're just kind of dropped in random places. So we've looked at the number of units here and what we have done in the past, and we have to do enclosures. Typically what we do is kind of the wood dog-eared fence with plantings around them. We have them positioned right now where I think it's easiest for, the guys to come and actually get them and put them back in the enclosure after they dump them in the truck, which is sometimes an issue on tight sites. But so we're doing dumpsters, and then exterior improvements to the existing buildings. So in the late 70s, they came in and they did some canopy detail with some like green metal and little wing walls. We're just gonna peel that off the building is what we're proposing. I've kind of dug around in there. It looks like they kept the existing materials underneath it all. And we've proposed just a little bit cleaner of a design. We have to take out most of these front steps and stoops and concrete because they're broken and not safe. So we'd like to put a new canopy there with some lighting, a little bit bigger window in that front entryway just to, brighten it up inside. The existing siding is a fiber cement. It's likely asbestos. We'd like to keep it, paint it, take care of the brick with some repointing. I don't want to paint it, stain it. It's not a bad color brick. I think it looks okay. Tearing the roofs off, new windows, like a full renovation to everything. I don't think there's anything we're not touching. It's kind of a mess, but the deal has almost gone through, at least from the funding side of this. They were really pushing us to be, I know I was pushing on you guys because we needed a permit by November so they could close the deal. And luckily they've gotten it extended a little bit. So it's rare that these projects that, have some HCR funding and things like that with tax credits are pushing me, and we're usually waiting for them to fund them. So I think it's good for the overall site. I'd love to hear any more concerns. I mean, we've tried to meet with, code enforcement and Michelle and fire marshal and just hear out what the issues are. There's been quite a few issues that we're trying to address. So if there's anything that you guys see.
So I just wanted to inform the board that this is proposed for 2 phases. I don't know if we're still continuing down that path.
So we have submitted to the building department plans for all the interior renovations, anything that wouldn't put us in front of your board. With the intent that I was gonna pull a permit a couple of weeks ago in order to satisfy some of the requirements for funding and closing a deal. That whole deal got pushed another month, so I've not pushed for the permit. I know John has the plans. I met with him more recently and he said, sure, we'll give you a permit when you want, but this, what's in front of you here, this whole packet, would be phase 2. Likely the whole thing's just gonna go as one.
Gotcha. Okay.
We probably will start in March, would be my guess now, instead of January.
Okay.
I don't know, I can't commit to that yet.
And I did want to let you know that late this afternoon, after I had left already, the fire marshal did review it, and he said it should be noted that we are in favor of the correction to the parking driveway situation with Sycamore Green, which will allow, greater emergency vehicle access to the complex. So he did make that comment, and I will forward that on for your file.
Yeah, I've been talking with him, so if there's anything that comes up, we'll address it. It's a huge site. It's 10.4 acres, so we're not really constrained by too much. We've got landscaping. We'll have a better landscaping plan for the meeting for the community building. I don't know, do we need anything for lighting? Would cut sheets be good? We're only replacing the fixtures that are on the building. So all the buildings I could put together a lighting plan on the site.
You're gonna put new lighting on the new building though, right?
Yeah, but that's so central. I could put something together for that, yeah.
And even the down fixtures for the new
And we'll get you
entryways.
cuts for all those. They're all gonna, they have to fall into our energy program, so they're all gonna end up having to be 3,500K or warmer. Obviously dark sky friendly, and they'll fall into all those parameters. Right now, they're just big, like prison lights.
Yeah.
They don't look good, so.
And then a big point of contention for all of us would be a CMU enclosure for these dumpsters.
Okay.
Typically, that's where we're going towards, and
All right, I will, I'll ask them, yeah, I don't see any reason why they wouldn't want to
yeah,
do
the
that.
split, just the
So
plowing.
you do CMU enclosure and then just, like a wooden gate, or, they're hard to do wood.
They
usually
are.
end up with the slatted gates because they don't break.
Right. Yeah, it's the snow removal that causes damage to these typically.
Yeah, that's another, okay.
Do you have where the snow removal, where you put it? Do you have where the snow removal is going to, where you're
I
gonna
don't
store?
know where it is right now. I gotta look
I
at
guess
how
it's
they're
not on the
using
map
it.
then.
So
Okay.
I may have to agree, get with those guys and see what they do. I'm pushing for them to tear down their current leasing office and put a maintenance building there, because right now they're storing all their snow equipment outside. So that's not part of this, but
It'd be good to know where you're putting the snow though, at least on the map, or if you're gonna take it off-site.
we don't take it off. Last time I talked to them was just, do you have an issue with snow removal? And they said, no, it's fine. They plow Strathmore, I believe it's a private road. And I know that was a concern with the fire marshal, so we've been talking, just sometimes it doesn't get plowed very well. We're trying to pull some of the parking off of that street with what we've done here. We've added, anytime you go to this, I should note that I think we're not even coming close to the requirements for parking here. On our site plan, I think, was 2 per dwelling unit, so I think we're showing 190? Sorry. 198, and we're required to have 388. This place is like empty of cars anytime I've been there. A lot of the tenants here don't have vehicles, so we would really be proposing adding more than what we've shown here. We're adding 21 to the whole site right now, even with creating actual accessible spots that take up 2 per, just because we're adding a bunch near the community building, thinking somebody has a birthday party, whatever there, I'm gonna have a couple extra people parking in that area. But otherwise, we had done laundry in there in the beginning, and it's too big of a site, and I don't think people can drive as well as we would need them to be doing laundry, and so we're gonna put laundry back in every individual building, so. We'll look at snow removal. I'll see if I can figure out where that is and just indicate it to everyone here.
From the parking standpoint, I absolutely do not advocate for 300 and some parking spaces.
I would agree.
But is there anything that needs to be done from a proper standpoint to make sure that, variances are granted if necessary? I hate to say that you have to go that route. I just don't want to create a problem.
We're not adding any units here, so we still would be the exact same number of units before. It's kind of how we would approach it. I don't know, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's where I initially went of, the number, also when we were evaluating, okay, coming for site plan, that it's the same number of units and that's not changing at all, and therefore the parking requirement isn't changing. It might be worth us looking into the previous approval for this. I don't know how difficult it is going to be to up, but whether the previous approval had the 176 or whatever.
I have the original drawings, actually, here. I can show them to you after if you'd like.
Oh, okay, so he already has them, but
From 1978. They do have a parking count on them. I don't think it's very accurate, but
yeah, we can take a look.
Yeah.
So at least where my mind initially goes, is that the use isn't changing, the number of units isn't changing. It's kind of like a pre-existing deficit.
I just
Not
know
my
on-
call, but
I know on some previous applications, we've used, I can't tell you what the zoning board's gonna do if you have to go there, but it's more or less a slam dunk scenario, you know,
Sure.
it's a cleanup variance, right?
Yeah.
So that there is no potential issue anywhere across the board down the road on this approval or
I don't
anything,
think we
so.
would get any pushback here, just
Yeah,
from going on the site,
It's just a thought,
there's
because
yeah,
no one there.
absolutely.
And we've, on things like that, we have conditioned, again, I can't speak for the whole board, but we have conditioned our approval on those variances to get right through here, if need be, so that they don't get held up in the sort of back and forth meeting
Right, you're
date
not as
thing,
worried
but-
about the sequencing.
Correct.
It's not, oh, we're holding it here, so then you
Yeah, I
have
don't
to
think
go through the
anybody's
whole
worried
process.
about it, it's more of a cleanup conversation
Yeah,
in my mind,
absolutely.
if
And I
if
think it's
necessary.
only 1.5 spaces per unit, right?
You know,
We'll
I
double
didn't,
check.
I didn't do that, this little piece here.
That's what it
My-
was
My
for the-
civil engineer did, and I said, really? Like, that
Yeah, we'll
seems
double
high.
check.
Okay.
I mean, these are one-bedroom units for a lot of them, so
With a bike rack, we could count it as parking.
I will give you a bike rack. Actually, I might argue about the bike rack for a while. I don't know if we need it here. I think we show it. We
Be careful, he might ask for the
And
swimming pool back.
does that old site plan show if
Okay, can you imagine
variances
there was a
were
swimming
granted on it or anything?
It was from
Nothing.
78. They didn't have variances
1978.
then. I will take a look at it. See, I don't have service on this thing right now, but it's in here. So, what else? Bike rack, snow removal, CMU dumpster enclosures, parking counts. I don't have indicated that we're replacing all the sidewalks in here. Originally, when I did this, we were going to go through and repair anything that wasn't safe or in good condition. Our last weekly design meeting, the owner said, I don't want to do that, let's just replace everything. So, fine. Which may involve us trying to do a little more survey work ahead of time so we can design it to bring it up to code now. And we'll get to that point with code enforcement. So the community building has kind of a big canopy outside that engages with that existing playground area. There's a bunch of power lines that go through there that are in the playground. I think we need to get those removed. Otherwise, everything else is just getting either painted, repointed, or replaced, mostly replaced.
I don't want to keep on going on the parking, but the parking that's on the street, some of it's already designated as parking spots.
Yes, there's street.
And
part of
you're
the-
counting that into the total you've given us roughly?
What I could get off Google Street View.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And that's where the accessible spots are painted right now. And like I said, there's no approaches from the curb to the asphalt of the actual roads. I don't know how, what significance they do, but we found 5 of them, so we're saying there's 5 existing accessible spaces. Depending on where we put our accessible units, I just got a survey back from the surveyor, so I'm trying to figure out what the easiest spot to do ramps are. We'll locate, right now our site plan locates all the accessible spots as close to where we're anticipating putting those units, but if I move one here or there, the spots are going with those, obviously, but should be noted. Otherwise, I think that's it. There's a proposed color scheme here. I don't know if anyone has any objections, comments. It's not very offensive, I don't think.
Everything looked like an improvement to me, so.
Agreed.
It is, and we've worked with this client on a few different projects, and they do good work. They always get the jobs through, so.
Mr. Chairman, my only other question is just what your schedule is for this. You know, I mean, the application is posted on our agenda as preliminary and final. I know you said you were pushing for some approvals that may or may not be needed now from a time frame standpoint.
That was with the building department.
Okay.
So our intention is to come back on the 30th and get approved at the public hearing.
Okay.
And beyond that, whatever else is required. So we had submitted drawings to the building department for, we call them kind of our preservation set, which would be all of like the interior work, new doors, carpets, kitchen cabinets, fixtures, lights, light switches, everything. Anything that wouldn't trigger us to go in front of site plan approval as a phase 1 packet, and this would be phase 2. We have not pulled that permit. We've simply met with John, and I'm drawing a blank on the fire marshal's name. Bill Lang, and kind of addressed a couple of their comments, and then never went and pulled the permit because we ended up getting our deal pushed back a little bit further. So my intention, our intention, our client is looking to probably go with the whole packet back to the building department as phase 1 and 2 together, pull permit, and probably be starting in March.
Okay, so you got some time.
The one other thing that I'll point out that we'll look at is if you're going to change out any of the signing on it.
There's one sign on one of
I'm not talking about the building numbers, I'm just talking, there is a sign.
There's a sycamore green sign.
Yeah.
And we will definitely want to do something with that. It's a brick, I think it's kind of a couple of brick piers with a wooden sign between it. We've proposed on one of the, kind of like a 3D view of like the new versus the old in the packet. We've proposed the new building signage, which is just a simple black number on the wall. And we'll probably simplify their front entry sign, but that's a separate permit, correct? Is that what you're thinking? Or application with the town, or
We
should
can do it either way.
Yeah, they've engaged a sign company, and I doubt I'll have it by the 30th, so I'd probably leave it out of what we're doing, and then we'll come back. Would we come back to the planning board for the sign, or is that just a sign
R5.
permit?
This is R5. It might be different. I'd have to check the sign code.
Well, I'll
check the sign.
I'll follow up with you on that then. If it's something that we need to have shown, I'll just do it, and we'll have the sign company do whatever I draw.
Okay.
That way we can have it by the 30th. 'Cause I don't want to. If I can avoid making extra trips, that saves me time, right?
I have a quick question. So your site plan, it looks like it's proposed. You don't necessarily have a sheet that's existing conditions. I know you kind of have some call-outs, but
Sure.
you have some picnic areas. Are they all existing, or are you proposing any new picnic areas?
No, we're not proposing anything new for those picnic areas.
Okay.
Frankly, they're just too remote to the site, so we're
Sure.
trying to pull everything in.
Okay.
I might even take those off. I need to
Yeah.
look in there if they're even there anymore.
Right, well, they
I
kind of
don't
just say like blacktop picnic area, like concrete
think they've
picnic
been
area,
kind of
so I don't really know what they entail.
Like I said, this survey that we got had the pool shown on here, and
Sure.
it's not there, I promise. So we've kind of hatched in a little bit darker where the dumpster enclosures are, so anything like new,
Mm-hmm.
the ramps, and then the new asphalt.
Okay.
But no, nothing outside of that central area for
Okay.
like site development, I guess you call it.
And so do you think that you'll have a detail for the dumpster enclosure for this board based
Oh, yeah.
on their,
Yeah.
before the next meeting? Okay, great.
They want to, if the,
Previous date, Monday?
or next
Didn't
Monday.
we Earlier?
That was somebody else, but yeah, I can do that too. That's fine.
Is that enough time?
Yeah.
Okay.
I might have one. Look. Yeah, right? We might have one. I don't know. We don't do CMU dumpster enclosures a lot, though. Frankly, we don't do dumpster enclosures a lot. We typically try and keep trash inside the buildings, but they're just hard. But for a site like this, we have to. There's not much else to do. Just try and make it so people will want to use them. So good lighting around it and easy access. Okay, anything else? Yeah, it'll be nice. Yeah, so. Cool. All right. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I'll follow up with
Thank you for your
all those
patience.
things. Yeah, not a
Thank you.
problem.
Michelle, any other business before the board? We're adjourned.
Thank you.
We don't have to be formal, right? We're adjourned.